Hello there everyone, welcome back to another video about a children's trading card game. In today's video I'm going to be talking about two of the latest Gate Ruler articles posted on the official Japanese website. I'm a little bit late on this, my apologies. It's exam season, I'm really busy, lawyer haha sadness. Let's go ahead and begin. Thank you, Sundar, my similar level supporter. There's two exciting articles. So the first one I'm going to talk about is news about set 5, and the second article I'm going to talk about is going over in a little bit more depth some of the themes that we're going to be seeing in set 4. So let's begin. So we're starting with the first article, and the main points of this, as summarized, are Gate Ruler is getting a 5th set. There are going to be some Japanese anti-countermeasures. I'll go over that in a little bit. And the English version is doing well, and there is a planned Chinese release this year. This article was released last year, but this year. So let's begin. With regards to set 5 being confirmed and why that's surprising, potentially, interestingly, so for those of you who've been watching the channel for a little bit while, you'll remember that when the new management situation was happening, they said, oh yeah, no worries, set 4 is going to release and then set 5 is going to happen. We're already working on it. According to this new article, that was a load of bollocks. Now, to what extent I believe that, I don't know, it's probably true, I think, because it was announced before the release of set 3, and my understanding is set 3 sales weren't incredible, and in Japan they really weren't good at all. Here they've been pretty good. In English, the sales are good, and we'll talk about that. That's mentioned in the article, but in Japan they were not fantastic. So I don't find that necessarily difficult to believe. The reason they give is that the previous management before Ikeda took back over is, to quote, the fire surrounding Gate Ruler is not just coherent criticism, but also slanderous defamation, which piggybacks off of honest users with real criticisms. In such a situation, it is difficult to respond in good faith, and so therefore there is no expectation of an increase of sales in Japan. So I believe this, to be honest. I think there's so much drama in the Japanese market, and the problem with Ikeda is entirely a Japanese market issue because he just has a hate mob that follow him. And those of you who've seen me talk about Ikeda before, I kind of get it. Like, I get it to an extent. I think, there are a lot of things he does where it's just bad. Like, he's not great at managing his public image. Like, he just says things without thought sometimes. But the level of hate he gets is so disproportionate to the stuff he does. It's a bit insane. There are people who've been harassing him for literally over 10 years. So if you're interested in that, I can make a video about the Ikeda situation if you actually care. But essentially all you need to know is he has a hate mob following him, and now he's hiring a legal team to basically just deal with it so he doesn't have to and he won't respond to them. Good. Should have done that a while ago. So relating to the last video, the reason now set 5 is going to happen is Ikeda has essentially bought out the entire company. He owns Dayu completely. Although he transferred the Gate Ruler IP and everything to Dayu, but he is the shareholder of Dayu, so he owns Dayu. So technically he doesn't own it, Dayu does, but anyway. Skipping forward a little bit, the company is going to shrink and will be an indie creator. I mean, it already was. And Ikeda is going to return to the forefront of public relations, but with improvements. It better be. I think that's the real thing. I definitely think that the PR situation after Ikeda left was really good. I think not that we ever learned their real name, did a good job. I liked the videos. I think they were well done. I think that it was definitely an upward trend, so I'm really sad to see that that's probably not going to happen anymore. Though there are advantages to Ikeda's return, and I suppose I'm going to take a little break now from this article to talk about that. So when Ikeda initially left, I made a video about it and why I thought it was a good thing for the game. And I think at the time, those points still stand. They hold up. However, things have become clear that were not at the time. I think one of the biggest expectations was with Ikeda gone, the harassment would stop, right? Like the people just saying stuff about the game that was blatantly false and all the other stuff. It would go away. Antis would piss off, essentially, was the expectation. And even some antis might start playing because Ikeda is now gone, right? The expectation was essentially, Ikeda gone, the problems that seem to be due to Ikeda should be leaving with him. That did not happen. And actually, recently there was a game that launched on Kickstarter called Arisu no Game, which had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with Ikeda. The only dubious relation was it was written in a tone of language that sounded like it might have been Ikeda writing it. That was it. Like that was the only potential connection, and that game went viral on Twitter for pure hate. Like, it was getting absolutely blasted. It was to the point where the official team had to release a statement going, Ikeda does not work for us. This is nothing to do with him. Can you leave us alone, please? So, when the hate mob on that level, it's clear that it doesn't matter, right? Like, they've decided gate rulers in their sights, so in Japan it's just going to happen. It was inevitably going to happen from the moment Ikeda tied his name to the project. Fine. Another thing that happened was that we didn't see anyone go, okay, Ikeda's gone, now I'll play. It turns out everyone saying that was just blowing hot air. So, we only saw a sales decrease once Ikeda left, and I don't think that is the only reason, like he claims. I definitely think there's a lot of other reasons. But I definitely do think that the level of community engagement we got with Ikeda as part of the team was far better. So there is that advantage. And, with him here, I don't think the game's going anywhere. And we'll touch on that in a moment. But essentially, I think the game is here to stay for years now. Ikeda, it might be in the same way that Force of Will is here to stay for years. Doesn't have a massive player base, but people play. That's fine with me. I play this game for fun. Anyway, with that aside on Ikeda, but essentially, to wrap that up, Ikeda being back, I think, is a good thing because, nothing was really... Like, if it's true that they were just going to can the game after set 4, then him being back is immediately a good thing because it won't be. But also, those sort of hopes that we had with him leaving turned out to not really come to fruition. And if there are no SRs in set 4, then it's a dub, because that was one of the only real changes made by the new design team, the introduction of SRs, and I think it was kind of I like them in concept. I don't like the pull rates and the fact that there is so many foils that you need to get. SRs doubled the price of the game. I think that's a fair statement to make, right? They basically doubled the price of the game. So, yeah. Anyway, back to this article. Gate Ruler is doing well overseas, and the English version is performing several times better than the Japanese version. Because of that, the English version will naturally continue, and the Chinese version will be released in early 2022. So early 2022, that's probably the first, first 3 months of the year, which I have a theory regarding. I don't know if it'll happen, but we'll come to that in a moment. In fact, Gate Ruler would be able to continue off of just the overseas sales, and the Japanese version isn't strictly necessary. But Ikeda says he wants to give back to the Japanese TCG community, and he also needs the Japanese version to play with Japanese players because he can't speak English, so the Japanese version will continue. So those are the two reasons for the Japanese version's continuation. Personally, argument to be made that he should just focus on the English version. I'm not entirely sure of the benefits of continuing with the Japanese version, but I don't know at all about the logistics of making a card game, and it is entirely possible that it is just way easier for him to make it in Japanese and then just translate it into English. Seems very plausible. The hope is that if Gate Ruler continues in indie for a few years, it might be able to move past the current fire and become big. And I think that's reasonable. I think that's a very reasonable expectation. The hope that basically, unfortunately, there are a lot of mistakes made, and that combined with just pure hate and a whole load of other factors very early on during Gate Ruler has basically put it on life support. But it's going to be here for a while, and I think a big thing a lot of people are worried about is the game going to last? And, a year from now when we're at set 6, set 7, and 2 years from now when we're at set 10, and people are like, okay, this game has been around for years, it's probably not going anywhere, it has a stable player base, we will start seeing that growth hopefully now onwards. But I think when a game I believe it's 1 year, 3 years and 5 years. Those are the big hurdles that games need to overcome. And we're past the 1 year boundary. We're getting set 4. Kind of cheating because the set releases have been pretty rare, but been fairly spread out. But so that's good. Anyway, that is the first article, and the pictures that will have shown up at some point. One of them is an art with Malevolus, and another one is a artwork which Ikeda said is going to be used for a naming competition, but the file name says Alice in Wonderverse, so I think we all know exactly what that's going to be. Moving on to the next article, and I'll take the opportunity now to give my crackhead theory. So during, I can't remember which article it is, but Ikeda said basically that he wants, I think it was the first one, that set 4 he wanted to be completely viable as a jumping on point to the game. He didn't want to make it super reliant on previous sets. So he's going to support previous archetypes, but he wants set 4 to be a really good jumping on point. Now, also, a thing he also noted was that the Chinese version is going to be releasing in early 2022. And the final thing is that Ikeda has always wanted this game to be an international game, to have simultaneous releases worldwide. Now, what's the big problem stopping that at the moment with the Chinese version would be that it's essentially a year behind. And it could do sped up releases, but that's going to delay the Chinese version for another year, and maybe he doesn't want that. My crackhead theory is this: the Chinese version is going to launch with set 4, with sets 1, 2, and 3 being released in quick succession after that in China throughout the course of the year, interspersed with set 5 and maybe set 6. That's my crackhead theory. Probably not going to happen, but I do think it would be very interesting if the game just dropped with set 4 in China and maybe had these insanely cheap starter products that just gave China the whole of the set. The thing to note is the set 1 and 2 card pool is essentially worthless in Japan. And it's fairly low value now. There's lots of good cards there, but it's fairly cheap. And set 3, obviously, whilst high value, is going to devalue over time. And that's probably a good thing for the longevity of the game, because sets 1, 2, and 3 will, well, set 1 was pretty successful, but set 2 was pretty successful, but set 3 has been less successful. So it'll be a good to reprint the main cards that are actually seeing use, but also just make them really easily accessible. So crackpot theory is drop set 4 and China gets a whole slew of starter decks that are just reprinting a load of stuff. Maybe in the sort of, you buy one, you get one copy of each thing. Like how they do in Thailand, I know, for a lot of the card games. Could be interesting. No idea if that's what they'll do. Probably won't be. They'll probably just release it normally and just have a sped up release every 2 months or every 2 months or something. And China will catch up for 2023, but thought I'd say that. Anyway, onto the real meat of this article. So, I will be flashing up these images as I talk about them. So the thumbnail image is you imagine front legend in the set, Kamiyogatari. This looks like it's going to be an event, judging by the landscape artwork. Tends to be the case, not always, but tends to be the case. So that'll be interesting. And they are aiming for a spring release. So it's it's in this article. Sorry, it says we've been designing the set not just for our existing player base, but as a good entry point for new players with a new and strong deck type you can build just out of this set. So that's interesting. And I think for my prediction for release date, I'm gonna go with the end of Feb or early March. I think that's probably where I'm gonna go with. I really don't want it to be the end of March, because that is a significant delay. That is a 2-month delay from when we're expecting it. We would be expecting it in about 4 weeks at the time of this recording. So, it would be very nice to not have that. The decks, as we spoke about already, are Superhero, Death Shadow, and Regenleaf. And whilst they're going to be supporting a lot of the old new types, I do expect at least half the set to just be not at least, but like half the set to just be dedicated to these new archetypes and making sure they're really, really good. So let's get started, and because of this one piece of artwork, this is probably now the deck I'm most excited for. Superhero, Sharkman, it's elemental heroes. It's just elemental heroes. And look, I'm a GX kid. GX and 5Ds was when I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! I watched the original series, but GX, man, I watched that so much. And 5Ds is the only card game anime I think I watched through it its entirety and enjoyed the entire thing. I watched Vanguard and stuff and Buddy Fight, but come on, they weren't good most of the time. 5Ds was, I think, objectively a good anime. Anyway, It's probably rose-tinted glasses talking though. So, the fourth set will introduce the equip ability, where you essentially take your unit and you slap it on top of your ruler and you get the stats and potential abilities. Oh, if you play Buddy Fight, this is very exciting, but it's going to be a really, really cool ability to use, and it's definitely going to be a very unique way of playing the game. And the nice thing is, obviously, this is super generic. You can use this with every ruler and potentially every deck type. So that's going to be really interesting for the variety of decks. I just hope it's well balanced and doesn't like completely overrun the meta like it did in Buddy Fight. So depending on the ruler and the unit, the stats may be increased or decreased. I think it's very likely that all these equip units are going to have low strike, and at bare minimum they will get defense, but I think they're going to have low strike. I think that's going to be the balancing mechanic, and I think that's a really good one. Honestly, a really good way to balance it. The superhero deck will be built around this ability, and it features units that can be equipped via counter. Very cool, very, in the nick of time superhero-y. If you're already equipped, the remaining damage to the attack is aimed at previously equipped units, allowing these counter effects to cancel out the remaining damage. That's really, really strong. So it basically means if I am equipped with Sharkman, hypothetically, and you deal me 3 damage, and on the first damage I counter check something that equips itself, I equip over my Sharkman, the damage fizzles, which is nuts. That is such a powerful ability in and of itself that it immediately makes me think this deck is going to be top tier, just of that alone. The superhero deck is mainly level 2 units, but has effects that ready a resource or reduce their play cost. So again, this is leading very much into hand-based gameplay. So it has like cost reduction if you have other superheroes on the field. And this gives the deck the advantage of easily creating a high attack field. Notice high attack, not high strike. And I think that really is the key, where these units are basically like, you don't take much damage, but you are not going to be dealing much damage. That needs to be in place for this not to be inherently broken. The deck will also get an instant action event that can special summon a superhero from the deck, completing the mental picture of a hero appearing at the last second of the day, which is really cool. I think that's just going to be really fun to play. And I'm gassed. This is probably the deck I'm most excited for from the set. Actually, it's really hard to choose because they all sound really cool. Let me talk about the others and then you can decide, but I'm super excited for superheroes. Like, oh man, let's go. All right, Regan Leaf. So this is another Yu Chang Hong image, basically the the artist on the face of Gate Ruler. The pictured unit is Yu Choka, a new unit from your margin front. So Regan Leaf starts with a deck type with strong combos that allow you to repeatedly do complicated plays on your turn. So, for example, Sigron has the effect to sacrifice 1 unit to summon 2 Regan Leaf units of lower cost from your deck. And since you're summoning from your deck, you can use Silver Bullet effects to specifically counter what your opponent is doing. That's obviously very, very strong. The fact this is in your Imagine front is obviously very valuable because your Imagine front is very much the Silver Bullet-y faction. Many of them will also have previously supported attribute Warrior, allowing them to be used as fodder for Enhance or Genesis summoning. Also very, very powerful, very, very relevant. It will be a highly reactive deck whose plays depend on your opponent's board and strategy, repeatedly able to turn 1 unit into 2 or 2 units into 1, making use of cards with on-play effects or continuous effects. It's a deck that will increase the amount of things you can do in your turn, but it will be difficult to pull off, so it'll be a challenge from as early as deck construction. Now this really appeals to me for a completely different reason, right? So Superhero appeals to me from a purely like aesthetic, out this park. I'm super excited for the aesthetic, and oh man, the fun. That's going to be a fun deck to play. Regan Leaf appeals to me because it's really competitive. Appeals to me because it's going to be a challenge. It's going to reward skill, and it's going to take skill. It's going to be difficult to play, but it's going to reward like playing well. So those are 2 completely different. There are 2 wolves within you. Kill me. But those are like 2 really appealing aspects. So they appeal to me for completely different reasons. So I'm super excited for Regan Leaf here. Definitely, probably going to be. I would be shocked if it doesn't end up being the best deck in the format with a pitch like that, but hopefully it requires some real skill to be able to pilot it effectively, and it isn't just, ooga booga, me always have the answer. Finally, Death Shadow. So the unit here is Black Harpy. It's a new Volnar unit, so obviously this is so we know that Death Shadow is going to involve yellow lobbies. So essentially, he says, it's embarrassing to say as the creator, but Death Shadow is a deck type that is difficult to explain. It's centered around dark, godlike units, and their lore is a group of dangerous people who control life and death and proceed to consume it and advocate for a greater food chain. Fine, cool, lore. Its development concept is built around damage reversal, and it's a deck that deals itself damage and also heals damage, so you can DR a ton. As a result, it creates a gameplay style where the player has to be careful about when to use and when to save your DR costs. And it's also a deck whose performance can vary very widely, and it can be very fragile if a player is not careful. So this actually seems like it's probably the most skill-intensive deck of the three. The another unit here they show is Saint of Death, Goral of the Four Knights. It's another Vol 9 unit. Death Shadow also has effects which destroy a unit and also deal damage to your opponent. So you can use it in a control playstyle. Again, appealing to me massively because that is probably my favorite playstyle of any type of deck. I love control. I love my opponent not having fun. That is my shtick. Powerful effects like this will tend to deal damage to yourself, but on the other hand, you'll also have cards that can heal you. So obviously, the idea here is you're going to have really powerful control tools, but they're going to deal you damage. And I do think that has potential to be very generic. Like, I'm okay taking a damage to just pop anything because that seems like a really stonks trade in my opinion. As a deck, you will want to hold cards for the right time, and it'll be a good fit for hand rulers like Knight. I like that Knight is being specifically called out here because, you know, it's definitely fallen off. Hand rulers are everywhere, but Knight it doesn't offer anything unique besides a fourth card in hand. So if this becomes a massively combo-oriented deck, then Knight might be very valuable for that. And then it talks about Set 4's development being a result of huge amounts of collaboration from all sorts of people, whatever, no one cares. And yeah, I think that this is really, really exciting. So all three of these decks massively appeal to me. We're confirmed getting Alice support, confirmed getting Robo support, confirmed like all this other stuff. Set 4 has me hype as shit. I'm really, really excited for this set, so I really don't want it to be delayed. And I definitely think that like making sure to emphasize this, you can start here with these three decks that they're completely different. They hit like these niche like play styles that people right like they hit. You know, there's the power gamer, there's like the you know the Timmy, and then there's the guy who likes a challenge. You know, like these three kind of disparate player types are all hit by these three decks. And the artwork slaps. I'm just really, really, really excited for Set 4. So I'll be obviously updating you with all the news as it comes out. Again, we don't have a release date yet, though we should be getting it in the next week or two. So obviously I am during exam season, but expect a video as soon as we get that. And I will try my best to keep putting out 2 videos a week. I know I kind of missed this week, but yeah, don't worry about it. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you are most excited for in the comment section down below. Engagement, drive algorithm, thank you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers.